Hey everyone, Kumar Dattatreyan here with Agile Meridian, and we're on for another episode of the Meridian Point. And today we're going to be talking about topics that are adjacent to the xScale framework, if you will. Today I thought we would expand on a topic that Glenn and I talked about a few weeks ago, and that was about our Disruptor Method. And today we'll be focusing on one aspect of the Disruptor Method, and it's about the structures, the leadership structures that promote innovation, or conversely, the leadership structures that may be quietly killing innovation. So I'm not sure which angle to take, positive or negative. So we'll go with a positive angle. And what are the leadership structures that can promote innovation, promote creativity? And so we're going to be talking about that. And it's with pleasure I bring Glenn back to the stage here. Hey, Glenn, how you doing?
Hey, Kumar. Glad to be here.
Yeah, awesome. So I know last time we talked about the Disruptor Method in some depth, kind of overall what it was. And there's one of the things that the Disruptor Method helps solve is how leadership is structured. And we talk about bottlenecks a lot in the Disruptor Method, and how we want to remove those bottlenecks, from a business process or whatever. Those bottlenecks may also exist in how leadership is structured. What has been your experience with that?
I am frequently frustrated by organizational hierarchies and the fact that, and the basic notion of a silo. And it seems like the bigger the organization, the thicker the silo. There's good people everywhere, but they're trapped in a silo, and information has to flow up and then flow down, when really you just want to talk to the person in the adjacent silo, and you will eventually, but the process of doing that is painful, and it's incredibly costly. The bigger the organization, the bigger the cost.
Yeah, I agree. And we say in the Disruptor Method, we often say that complicated leadership structures can generate operational blind spots and a creativity bottleneck. Do you find this to be a consequence of these siloed leadership models?
They do, yet it's sad. The people that are there aren't really, in some cases where you have a lot of nasty politics, perhaps, but a lot of people are just trying to do the right thing. I'm in the X department. I'm just doing X things. I'm trying to get along with everybody. I'm trying to go and help. But you just, I like what you said, organizational blind spots. They only see a small piece of the picture.
Right. Yeah. And so how in the Disruptor Method, we see lots of symptoms of this, right? And maybe you can add some from your experience. We see that the symptoms that indicate to us that there are bottlenecks in the leadership structure are that there are communication breakdowns between levels of management. So certainly between silos, that's fairly evident, but even within a silo, levels of management aren't communicating with each other effectively. Can you comment on that? Is that something you see as well? And what are some things that you may have done to alleviate that?
You absolutely see this a lot, and many times I've seen people on the front line who have the information and know what to do, but they're not empowered to do it. So all they do is throw it up the chain. People are busy. Maybe they don't get to it, or maybe it's deprioritized. So nothing happens, and organizations are unable to respond in a timely manner to market developments and customer requests. This is why so many people are disengaged, both staff and customers. Customer loyalty is very low, and staff engagement is very low for this reason. It's not that they're bad people. They're just not enabled to do what they know needs to be done, which is very discouraging.
Yeah, I totally agree.
So let me turn this around. And you've been more leading with the Disruptor Method. So what do you see as the warning signs that you need to go and get involved and do something differently?
I mean, I think the biggest warning sign for me is when a senior management leadership is too busy and too far away from the daily problems. So when I see, line managers, line supervisors, kind of struggling and despondent, or their morale is low, or things that people say, at that level where, leadership doesn't care about what I'm doing. They don't really listen to what I have to say. That is a sign that there are bottlenecks in communication and information flow, in where the work happens and where the decisions are made to do that work in the first place. So somebody is making the decision to do the work, and a whole bunch of people are doing the work, but they have no say into how to improve how they do the work because they're not heard, right, for whatever reason.
Previously, you had used a phrase which resonated with me, is the notion of an order taker. That would kind of summarize this. Senior management decides something, they push it down, perhaps break it down a little bit, but people are basically order takers.
Pretty much. I mean, I would say so. The cost of this, of course, is that if I'm just going to use a manufacturing example, if the person on the manufacturing line notices a problem and needs to make a decision, they can't, because leadership owns that decision. And so what do, right? It results in a delay in that decision making, and all the while that this line is manufacturing whatever they're manufacturing with defects in the process, even though somebody knows about it and wants to fix it but can't, because the structure in the organization isn't such that where it rewards that kind of creativity or independent thinking or independent decision making.
I see this all the time. I would say that this is the prevailing model of organizations, particularly large organizations, which brings me to the big question. How do you do something about that, particularly in a large organization?
Yeah, I mean, so the Disruptor Method, what we try to do, of course, is leadership teams. You work with them at the C-suite level, at the next level down, and so on and so forth. It's not like they want to do a bad job. They don't. It's just that the reward models, the structures by which they've been organized, aren't efficient anymore for the way the company has grown. They've probably grown, scaled, bureaucracy has increased, and a certain level of bureaucracy is needed so that the company stays uniform and efficient. You can't just have no bureaucracy at all. But maybe it's risen to the level where it's now that bureaucracy becomes a bottleneck, and the people that are in these roles, these leadership roles, are finding themselves insulated and isolated from where the problems are. So they don't know the problems. They have blind spots as to what the issues are. And because they don't know the problems, they don't know how to fix the problems, because, again, they are insulated and isolated from them. So how do you fix it? Some of the things that we try to do is instill a set of capabilities in leadership teams. Number one is, how do you operate as a team? So oftentimes we'll go in a client, in a company, and find that the leadership team is quite dysfunctional. They don't really work that well together. They are quite competitive. They don't speak well about things. They don't speak in a strategic way, in a manner. They may get up and storm off because they don't agree with what someone else does, and so on. And so what we try to do with the Disruptor Method, especially on the leadership side, is first we assess the team. Of course, they have to want it, right? So if they want this, we want our help. We assess every member of the team, revealing their personality types and how they interact with one another. So once there's more awareness of where each person comes from, what their perspective is, they may be more apt to listen to another person. Also, what that does is help point out maybe deficiencies in the personality types that they don't have on the team. Maybe they're all type A personalities and they're all sort of want to give the orders. And so because of that, they don't have a balancing voice of reason, or of someone that brings more analysis and more gravitas to the table. It doesn't mean that they've got to go hire new people. It's just that now they have an understanding of what they're lacking, so they can kind of work on their team, work to become a more cohesive team. I'm going to stop there to see if you have any questions.
You said something interesting a few seconds ago around reward models. I agree that the reward models have to be aligned to the behavior that you want. What are some of the examples that you've seen where they need to be changed, and how did you change them?
Yeah, I mean, typically on a leadership team, especially if they're not at the C-suite level, the next level down, it's typically a collection of leaders from different departments that are maybe occasionally work together to come up with strategy for the year or whatever. These people aren't rewarded for collective shared goals. They're rewarded more for their individual goals in their department or division that they run. They may have some shared goals, but really the individual goals are what they're striving for, because they may be bonused on achieving a certain sales target or whatever it might be. And so these individual goals many times are in conflict with the individual goals of other leaders. And so how can you expect this team to work together, work collaboratively, if their rewards don't recognize the need for them to do that, to work together?
And
do you see that?
I definitely see behavior that is consistent with individual rewards. I'm not looking at the collective, but what would a collective reward model look like? What do you try and reach?
Yeah, so when we go in, we try to create those shared goals for the team. Okay, what is it that you're all working towards? What are the pains? We call it the SORI method: strengths, opportunities, risks, and impediments, and that forms the backbone of a continuous improvement backlog. And what comes out of it is really a lot of the pains that people talk about are the same within the department. So that exercise serves it as an alignment mechanism to align these people that may have disparate goals individually, but now they're more aligned because they see, oh, you know what, Glenn, you have the same problems I do. Maybe we can work together on resolving that, right? And it still astounds me that in medium to large companies, when we do this type of an exercise, there's so many ahas. You would think that they would have figured this out already, but that's not the case.
That's because they're stuck in the silo. They don't see it.
You're blind spots.
Yeah, you're pulling them out. So, and you're kind of going around towards a shared purpose. So do you literally change the reward mechanism? Have a discussion with HR?
Not necessarily. I mean, I think their individual goals are still in place. We don't try to change anything. What we try to do is add. We're more additive rather than subtractive, okay. Right? So the Disruptor Method, we're adding things that will provide value to the leadership team. So when we do an engagement, we try to get this leadership team more aligned as to what their purpose is, what the outcomes they are to achieve by doing these exercises. We assess the value stream that they're responsible for and identify the bottlenecks. What's unspoken is the bottleneck that they themselves have created, the bottleneck of a lack of knowledge, of information that they're not getting from their teams. It's unsaid, but it's not ignored, right? We put in mechanisms for the information that they're not getting today. We put a mechanism for them to get that information in the future by implementing things like leadership as a service and coaching them and teaching them how to be servant leaders. And when they start to practice it, of course, it takes time. We have to coach them through that process and coach them on how to invoke the leadership as a service model. And what not to do. I mean, they're going to make mistakes, of course, and we let the mistake happen, and then we have coaching sessions with them afterwards. It becomes apparent, how they need to change their behaviors, and they do. They invariably do that.
Let's drill down on that. There's a lot of juice there. So I was with you quite clearly, creating shared goals. But let's drill down from that point on. creating shared goals, great. Get everybody aligned, great. Adjust, understand the behaviors and the personalities of your colleagues, absolutely. But how do you go from there to, let's expand in some detail the next step?
Well, typically these people don't work together on a regular basis. They may get together once a year for their strategy meeting. And somebody facilitates either external to the company or internal to the company. They facilitate the strategy. They come up with their overarching OKRs or goals, whatever it is, their KPIs. And from those KPIs are extracted their individual goals that they have to go do for their department. And then they see each other again a year from then. Typically they don't get together very often. So what we do is we say, okay, you're going to meet every 2 weeks. We're going to set a cadence of accountability here for this team where you are meeting every 2 weeks. And that backlog we created from the SORI exercise, from the value stream mapping exercise, that is going to be something that you're all working together on together. People are going to take ownership of these things. They're going to sort of work with their team. If I'm the head of finance and I have my team that I'm going to work with, we're going to help them utilize leadership as a service for if it's a finance related thing, on how to get that leader and their team, his or her team, working in a way that is more effective, where they can get more information, they can act on that information and make better decisions. And ideally, they're not necessarily making the decision themselves, because they're using leadership as a service to identify the person that's closest to that decision, if they can't reach a consensus to make the right decision or make a decision. It may not be the right decision anyway, but just to make a decision.
Let's give a 30-second intro to leadership as a service. Do you want to do that, or do you want me to give it a try?
You can. We have covered it several times in prior videos, so maybe we can link to it.
Okay. It's just that it's not I don't think a broadly used.
Maybe you can give a 30-second sort of what is it, and we can move on.
Sure. The key notion, and it's simple yet powerful, is you have somebody who needs something done. They either are directly responsible and they do it, or they will go and pick somebody who will create a team who will do it. But the critical point in the team is that the decisions are time boxed, and they have to come to a unanimous agreement. And if they don't, the DRI will override, which they don't want, of course. So this encourages very quick consensus gathering, and which may include, what, we need more time.
Yep, that's basically it.
Yep, it's so simple, but you have to try it.
Yeah, it is simple, but it's not that easy to implement, because behaviors are well ingrained in people where it's hard to sort of let go of the control to make that decision. But once you get it and you go through a few cycles of this process, it becomes a lot easier because you see the effectiveness of it.
We should do the plane simulation exercise. That's such a great way of the plane on fire simulation. It's such a great way of illustrating the concepts. But yeah, let's get back to it. So that sounds so simple, and that's all. But yet that's all that you do.
That's pretty much it. I think the real value comes from this group of people that may have gotten together once, twice, maybe 4 times a year, getting them together every other week, right? And where they're discussing their challenges, they're discussing their problems, we're opening up the lines of communication, we're teaching them without calling it, we're teaching them Kanban, we're teaching them flow, we're teaching them capabilities that will help them manage their business better. And through the DRI structure, the leadership as a service structure, we're helping them coach the next line of leaders down on how to employ those structures. And we see that it propagates many levels down from them. So if it's a very hierarchical organization, there's many levels of leadership. It propagates fairly quickly. We do have to do some coaching to make sure that the leaders at the levels below the level that we're coaching are getting it and understanding how to use it. but it's not as difficult as it might seem, right? Because once people see it work, and it's the leaders that are doing this, they're saying, hey, this is how we're going to do. We're going to make decisions from now on. We're going to have a more collaborative decision-making structure, and this is how it works. Let me come and show you how to do it. People take notice, right? Because it's your boss telling you.
And given at the more senior level, they're working together as a team. They're setting a precedent and leading by example.
An example.
For how their teams can work with their sister colleagues in the next branch of the hierarchy.
Right.
And that's it. And all you do is teach at that level, and it goes all the way down the hierarchy.
I mean, not always, but that's the hope, right? I mean, so the Disruptor Method is meant to work with a team, a leadership team, and we work with them anywhere from 3 to 6 months so that they can establish their cadence of accountability and have that structure permeate 1, 2, up to 2 or 3 levels down. It doesn't always, because the culture may be slower to respond. It may only permeate 1 level down. But our engagement is with the leadership team to get them to be effective and more resilient in the face of change. And if they want us to stay, then we stay, and we work so that it permeates further, right? But the Disruptor Method is meant to leave behind a set of capabilities that the leadership team does not currently possess.
What do you do in terms of follow-up? Do you sync up with them?
Yeah. I mean, so after the initial engagement, which lasts anywhere from 4 to 6 months, then and it's not an embedded coaching engagement. The first couple of months are pretty intense, but after that, it's just the 2-week, the bi-weekly cadence where we're there with them, helping them facilitate, coaching them. We have another meeting with some of the leaders individually to coach them individually if needed. But then it sort of tapers off as they pick up steam and take ownership of this process. After the 6 months, we're just really they buy a certain number of hours, and we're there on demand really to help advise them. It's more advisory at that point rather than a full-on engagement.
But the bottom line, and I've seen this from some of the customer testimonials, is this works. Just getting that connection at a senior level, it does self-propagate, and they see dramatic results. So that's why I think it's so powerful.
Yeah, I don't think this is rocket science. It's just, I think people and big companies, as companies scale, they've kind of lost their way a little bit, and so the hierarchy is there to help them navigate all of the communication channels, or so they think, but it's not effective, right? Information is blocked, not intentionally, but it's just blocked because of the hierarchy. And so what ends up happening is people that are the doers in the company are frustrated, their morale's low, they may leave the company because they just don't like working there, it's dysfunctional.
Yep.
Things that they see happening can be easily remedied, but no one's listening to them because the structure doesn't exist for them to be able to weigh in.
Yep.
And what this does, so one of the examples of one of our clients is that it did permeate all the way, again, this is a manufacturing firm, all the way to the floor, right? And they went from a sort of a company that serviced parts to a company that manufactured the full machine and the parts. And that doesn't happen just because someone said, hey, let's start manufacturing these parts, right? There has to be a certain set of market conditions that makes it available to this company to be able to do that. Mm-hmm. And in this case, it was the pandemic. It sort of shut down supply lines, so they had an opportunity to start manufacturing the parts that weren't coming from overseas, and then eventually manufacturing some of the machines that are used in the beverage bottling industry. They took advantage of it, but they took advantage of it because they had these structures in place where they had full line of sight to the floor, the shop floor, from senior, the CEO, the C-suite, all the way to the people on the floor doing the work. and the structure was replicated every layer. Not many layers in this company because they weren't that big, 4 or 5 layers, but still, that wouldn't have happened without it.
Interesting. Nobody likes a crisis, of course, but there is an opportunity there.
Yeah.
The cute phrase is, a crisis is a terrible thing to waste. Nobody likes it, but that does open up opportunities that would otherwise not be there. And that's a great story. The company you're talking about seized it.
Yeah, and we've gotten other clients, of course, from that. Not from that, but certainly other clients where we have similar success stories. Maybe not to this extent, but I think the bottom line is whether you are using the disruptor method or something like it, the bottom line is that leaders can take immediate steps to become more aware of the real problems that exist. And the way to do that is to start becoming more aware of their own blind spots and their peers' blind spots by talking to the levels of management below them, right? To really understand what the issues are and problems are. Do you need something like the disruptor method? It certainly helps accelerate it. It's like a catalyst to bringing visibility to the issues in the company, in the structure of the company, and the problems that the company faces. But leaders should be doing this anyway. Yeah.
But they're too busy.
They're too busy, right? They're too busy putting out fires, or the fires that are brought to their attention.
Yep.
And that keeps them from really seeing the problem, the root causes of these fires, right? And so it's just this constant cycle of reacting to the issues rather than being more proactive.
Yep, they're doing fire fighting instead of fire prevention.
Right. So yeah, I mean, I think that the structure, leadership structure, the structure of the company, right? What was it? I forget the name of this. It's how the structure of the company reflects the products that are produced. I don't know if you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, it's a law.
Not Little's law.
I was thinking a little too. Yeah, I think you're talking about. Yeah, products reflect the organizational hierarchy.
Yeah, whatever that law is. It's depending on how a company is structured. If there's lots of hierarchy and lots of bureaucracy, the products that are produced are typically of lower quality. They reflect that lack of collaboration. They're typically of lower quality, not as innovative. Microsoft was like that back in the 2000s, and their products, even though they were used by millions of people, the products were buggy and unreliable, and there was little in common between Office Suite and something else that Microsoft produced, because it was different teams doing the work. They weren't necessarily talking to each other. Microsoft today is a juggernaut. They're one of the most well-run companies in the world, and they are they're not what they were in the 2000s. They are a very nimble, agile company compared to what they were. Can they be better? Of course, but they're certainly not what they were. But my point is that the structure of your company is going to be reflected in what is produced and what you deliver to your customers. And so take a look at that structure and see if there are ways to improve it.
Yep. And what you want is a strong connection to the customer with feedback quickly incorporated. But that's easier said than done.
Yeah. All right. We're about at the 30-minute mark. Anything else you'd like to cover before we end this?
I think this is a good break point.
All right. Awesome. Well, thanks for joining us. We will catch you next time. Bye-bye.